What happens when two successful entrepreneurs get together for a drink? They talk shop, of course. So grab your favorite cocktail and sit alongside Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso, two seasoned business leaders that have driven their own companies to success, as they share from their experience and dive deep into the secret sauce that can turn a company around. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome to the CEO Podcast. I'm Vince Moiso, and I'm here with my friend Scott DeLong and our special guest, Josiah Lilly. Josiah, thanks for having us in one of your businesses. Right now we're at Famosa, the Surface Studio at the Soco Design Center in Costa Mesa, California.
Beautiful facility.
Yeah, it's an incredible facility, and Josiah's been gracious enough to host our podcast here tonight. And I have to tell you personally, for me, this is actually a really exciting podcast episode that happened a little bit by chance tonight, and I'm so happy that it did. Josiah and I have known each other for going on about 20 years or so, and I'm personally very, very familiar with his businesses. And I think Josiah's just got an incredible story. And as we've talked in previous episodes, Josiah and I are in Entrepreneurs Organization together. Scott formerly was in Entrepreneurs Organization, and we understand the concept of forum and the concept of experience share. So I think in the spirit of experience share today, I'm excited to have Josiah share some of his background. And really, the topic for today's episode is around this bootstrap entrepreneur effort. I mean, starting from ground zero and really building from nothing, very, very independently, to this point of now owning 4 businesses and real estate holdings and all kinds of assets. It's a pretty incredible journey and an amazing story. And we've talked about this so many times, and I've heard you use the term school of hard knocks. Like, you love to say, man, I'm from, I got my education, I got my degree from the school of hard knocks, and you certainly did, and you've proven that while the degree is not important, the journey and the education and the knowledge are. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your journey, and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, I've been working ever since I can actually remember. We moved to California when I was about 11 years old. I started selling newspapers, cutting grass. I realized that I could cut someone's grass for 10 or 15 bucks. Then I found a neighborhood kid who would do it for 5 or 6. So I'm like, that makes sense. So I got more projects and had him handling some of those for me. And business always kind of came easy to me. It just kind of it seemed like it was a fun thing for me to try and take any kind of a project, see how you could turn it and make it something profitable. So it was kind of always in my DNA. I remember going to Big Bear like I was 15 years old. And I could buy ski lift tickets as a student for like 25 bucks. So I'd buy 15 or 20 at a time, then go into the parking lot and sell them for 35 bucks.
Scalper!
And then within about 3 or 4 hours, made about $1,000 at 15 years old. And it was just one of those things that just literally just made sense. I'm like, all right, well, if I can do this and turn it for this, and that's fun, that's easy, let's do that. So it's always been kind of in my DNA as long as I can remember.
So this is the important topic for me because, obviously I teach at the university and I teach entrepreneurship. And one of the things that in these courses they are always talking about is venture capital, angels, how to gain money, how to whatever. And when we had an opportunity to talk to you about bootstrapping, because guys without education, guys that just work for a living, don't get opportunities in front of the angels, right? So and that's one of the things I thought about in the university that the entrepreneurship program suffers in is they don't talk about bootstrapping, which is going and getting it.
Yeah, just this organic, independent effort to make business happen, to make shit happen, right?
Yeah.
So how do you end up So let's fast forward for a second. So going from newspapers and scalping lift tickets in Big Bear, how do you
Which
all
is
of a sudden,
illegal, just saying. Yeah,
I wasn't suggesting it, but I mean, if it works, it works.
So how do you end up with 4 businesses?
So when I was 16 years old, I wanted to help my parents support my, buying clothing, paying for a car, etc. My parents didn't have a lot of money, so I got a job through someone that we knew in the church who did stucco. And so I went to this big house up in Dana Point, to the architect's house, and I started doing stucco. And the second day doing stucco,
doing the work. Like
actually
putting the stucco on.
learning how to apply stucco to a home,
Okay.
which was not at all what I wanted to do, but it was a job and I wanted to support my family. So, and the second day on the job, the tile guy approached me and said, "Can you read a tape measure?" And I said, "Well, of course, who can't read a tape measure?" And he said, "My helper can't. So why don't you quit doing stucco?"
The guy I'm paying.
Yeah, why don't you quit doing stucco? And I'm like, "I don't do fucking stucco." So I'm like, "All right." So I quit doing stucco that day and went to work for him the next day.
Reading tape measures? That was your job?
Because I've always loved art. I've always been really creative, loved design, loved drawing since I was very young. So the idea of doing tile and the creative aspect of it appealed to me much more than just doing stucco. So I quit that job and went to work the next day at the same house for the tile guy. And at that point, just asked him a ton of questions, like, "Why are you starting here? Why are you doing this? What's this?" And I was very...
Were you just doing his installation work then? So he did the design. You didn't get your artistic thing done. You were just doing the work he told you to do?
I was just his helper.
Okay,
I was just the guy mixing the thin set, mixing the mud, making his cuts, and learning. Because construction's in my blood. My grandfather was an architect. My dad, my uncles were builders, developers. So it's kind of in my blood. But the design, the artistic aspect of it, mixed with the business aspects, what really appealed to me. So I just started figuring it out when I was 16 years old.
What's the so you're the quintessential entrepreneur, by the way, and it's hard as you and I both know in the side conversations that we have, it's hard not to see the new shiny object, right? Because there's an opportunity there, and everything that you just described was, you were like, I could see your brain working immediately the moment that you're mixing thin set, asking the questions and going, just going, dude, I can do this on my own. Like I can make, he charges this. I mean, you're probably asking him, how much do you charge? And what does it cost for a helper and all these other things.
Yeah, I've always been aggressive. I've always wanted to learn. I didn't want to sit down and be a helper for the rest of my life. So I just understand the business from the bottom up. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And it took me about a year after just being a helper, and I said, I think I got it. So when I was 17, I took my GED. I quit school, and I just started my company when I was 17 years old.
And how long ago was that?
That's he's not supposed to ask. Not supposed to ask a lady her age. That was 31 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that long.
So your business, Epic Ceramic and Stone, has been around for 31 years.
Oh, it has.
And installing basic tile and stone kind of fabrication work?
It might have started off, I think, I don't know if it was ever basic. It was I tell my guys we're privileged to put the finishing touches on the finest homes on earth. We really do. It is crazy the level that we have gotten to. We're doing $40, $50, $60 million homes, and we're doing the finishing touches, obviously creating their kitchens, their bathrooms, the bar, the fireplaces, all of the places where the memories are made. We turn houses into homes, so it's actually very humbling when you think about the level that we're working
You have that
at.
reputation that early in your career, though, that you could produce that?
Not initially. I mean, it's definitely grown, but I've always had my passion has always been that high level, that level of detail, being a perfectionist. I never had the desire to try and go into doing like mass production that probably could have produced more money for me, to be honest, but I wanted to do something that was more unique, to set myself apart. As where my vision was not where the masses were, but let's do something special.
Help that you were in South Orange County, right?
It for sure did. Yeah.
Where people can afford to do those kind of things.
Absolutely.
But they give a young kid a chance.
It's, when I look back on it, I think
Why did they do that?
because I'm a good talker. I mean, I don't know any other reason, honestly. I look back, I'm like, wow, a 17-year-old kid was signing contracts before he could legally sign contracts. But I did, and I had my brother was my first employee, and have had hundreds since, and it's amazing what we've been able to accomplish over the years.
What's the most challenging thing as an entrepreneur?
I think managing people is the hardest thing. I've worked really hard to build, a family culture, and I've had several employees come up to me and tell me, like, I've worked in a lot of different places, but I've never worked in a company that treated people like the way you do. And that's been important to me. It's always been really important to me that people work with me and not for me, and that they work someplace where they feel like they have a voice, like they're respected, that their work is appreciated. When my kids used to come to the office, I used to tell them, hey, you think all these guys around here, because they're the ones that give you have the toys you have, we have the house we have because of their hard work, so appreciate what they do. So I think creating culture and managing people is probably the most challenging. Because I think sometimes people could look at you and see what you've accomplished and don't have the understanding of what it took to get there. And so it could have maybe like a little bit of a twisted, version of reality.
How do you bridge that gap? So right, so you came from the bottom up and you did the thing to be able to get to where you're going to get, and then you've hired people that have to start at the bottom and learn how to do things, and they're looking at you like some privileged character. How do you bridge the gap with those folks to make this family culture happen? Because that's a big deal, right?
I think they see me in the trenches with them, and they see how passionate I am about what we do. I walk through my shop, and my guys, some of them have worked with me for 25 years, and I give them hugs, and I tell them how much I love what they do, and we've laughed together, we've cried together. I don't ever treat them as on a different level than I am. I try and treat everyone as equals, whether it's the guy sweeping the floor or it's one of my top fabricators. I try really hard because I truly believe a lot of my team has skill sets that I don't have. As I've gotten older and more mature in business, I've realized, I have a certain skill set. I've learned to surround myself with people that have a lot of skills that I for sure do not possess, and I respect that, and I'm just appreciative that they've trusted me enough to create the team that we've created.
Respect that and give them credit for that, right?
Yeah.
Make sure they recognize that you see it.
Absolutely. We try to acknowledge everyone for who they are and what they bring to the table.
Sounds like a lot of hands-on leadership, a lot of leading by example, leading by through recognition. In culture, we've talked a lot about it in previous episodes, and I'm big on culture. I'm big on cultures with accountability and transparency, as you know, and authenticity and being genuine. And knowing your businesses as well as I do, I can speak to that. You are a very genuine individual. You're very authentic, and that bleeds through in leadership. Like, you're a perfect example of how authenticity and culture can really pay off, right? Not just financially, but in the way that people look at you, right? And the family culture that you've created, and the way they're so gracious for what you've provided for them. That culture is so critical.
Yeah, it's humbling. Like, when you have an employee come up to you, they tell you, one of the guys approached me not that long ago and said, listen, I'm able to buy a house in Mexico, take care of my family, my mother and my father and my siblings because of you and what you've done. And I don't say this like in a braggadocious way, but it's super humbling. It's like, wow, it's the vision you always have, and when you have that spoken back to you, and with people who's obviously they're being spoken from their heart, it's incredibly empowering, and it just reminds you of why you work so hard and why it's all worth it.
Well, I will say this one example. So he's a world traveler, right? And he's been all over the place. And I remember he came back from a trip not that long ago, and I said, "Whoa, where'd you go?" And he says, "Well, I was down in Mexico City." I said, "Well, what were you doing down there?" And he says, "Well, I went by myself because this guy that worked for me for 25 years invited me to his wedding." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, he doesn't even work for me anymore. Him and I have stayed in touch, and we stayed close, and he had the experience that he had, and he got on a plane by himself and still went down to his wedding, and that connection was still there. Pretty amazing."
So those are great examples of what you're doing right. But you also mentioned that the most difficult time is dealing with people. So when is it a struggle, right? So you've got this caring about others culture built in your organization. That's great. Not everybody gets it, potentially, right? And those that do, great. They're there for life and all that. But you said that dealing with people can be a struggle. Talk about some of those struggles. When is it a struggle? How does that represent itself?
Well, it's a struggle because I think a lot of people, especially in this generation, don't understand the hard work that goes into building a company.
Yeah.
And they can see something from an outside perspective and go, oh, wow, like, everyone's used to this very, very quick instant gratification now, right? They don't understand that, what it takes to build a company from the ground up. They might see your success and think that they can quickly.
You mean it takes 31 years to build a successful company?
I don't have to work hard. I just have to work smart.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
So, some people just want to, I think, especially with this current generation, it's harder to help them realize like what it takes. And we're not people that make you think you need to work 12-hour days by any means,
Yeah.
but you need to definitely work, solid 8 hours and work hard. So I think that's the hardest thing is getting people aligned with that vision and they're not thinking that it's, year one, you're going to be able driving, a Mercedes Benz and living the good life. It takes, not saying those things aren't possible. They certainly are, but it takes work and it takes being committed to your job. And so if I'm people that even can put on the facade of having that vision, but not maybe having the actual, wherewithal to see it through, it's challenging to kind of weed those people out. That's managing people is definitely the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Well, in a previous podcast episode, a recent one, we talked about dreaming big and dreaming even bigger, and so I look at not just this company that you built that has been around for 31 years, is then you've built on top of that, right? So you've got these other companies, specifically two of those companies are related. And you've created this vertical integration, right? And can you talk about the vision it takes for that, and frankly the balls that it takes to just
and how you manage that?
Do it. I mean, it was again, Scott used a great example where he's talking about, a lot of people are reaching out to these angel investors or going down the traditional method to find funding and capital or whatever. And again, it was just bootstrap effort after bootstrap effort, because I think that's what but how did you get to that point?
For whatever reason in my life, I'm 100% fearless in business. I don't know why, but like writing a check, committing to something that I believe in has never been something I think twice about. I don't try and do it just on a whim. I make sure it's a smart decision. But the first company I started after my initial company, Epic, was Famosa, and it was just a matter of needing to be able to create my own supply chain, because I had dealt with so many opportunities where I was trying to chase down material that was no longer available, was discontinued, was out of the client's budget, and I thought, what if I could supply the materials at a better level to give my clients a better level of service, know what they need, know that I can get this material from Morocco at a better price than I can get this material from France or wherever the case may be, then I could ultimately create more value for my clients. And so my second company, that's how that initially developed, which is out of a desire to be better service. So why did that have to be
a separate company instead of a division of your original company? How decision-making process within that?
Because that business I felt was more scalable. Epic is a very heavy service-driven company, right? It's all about a lot of employees, a lot of installers, fabricators, whereas Famosa was more of a materials design and supply business, and I wanted to make it completely separate. It was important to me they were different corporations, different employees, just 100%
so Epic is
the installation company.
The biggest customer for Famosa, but not the only customer. It was the concept.
Correct. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think the industry drives that too. Yeah. The construction industry, there's a lot of hands in the pot, right? So I certainly think the industry has driven some of that. Okay, so then the evolution then has gone even beyond the idea around Famosa, the Surface Studio, and having the showroom and having that vertical supply to actually an inventory distribution model. So talk a little bit about that.
So with Famosa, our clientele is mainly designers. It's basically the trade. So we get involved in projects very early on, and we're designing large homes with 6, 7, 8 bathrooms, 1, 2 kitchens, bars, fireplaces. So a component of every one of our projects is slab. And we don't really have inventory here. We're basically a dealer for all kinds of different brands. So as a component of all of our houses that we design is slab. So when we send clients to Anaheim or to local slab yards to approve the materials, we had multiple examples of those suppliers trying to sell direct to the client, which makes no sense to me. I'm saying in business, and they're cutting off the hand that feeds them, which is so stupid. So I got sick of that happening and said, I'm going to once again try and create my own supply channel, because I'm going to make sure that I take care of my clients, since these people don't respect the actual business that we're doing. And in doing so, I realized that a lot of other tile stores were facing the same challenges that Famosa was. So then I decided to pivot to a trade-only model, so that we could now create a trusted resource for those other trade resources who want to be able to send clients to pick out slabs, but no, they wouldn't get burned. So we don't even sell to the public.
No consumer.
We only sell to the trade. And I think people at first were a little bit leery because maybe other people had promised that, but once we proved true to what we said, we've seen a great response.
So essentially, you've got 3 businesses that feed each other and feed on each other, and at the same time, you've set them up as separate entities so that they can go beyond just the 1 or 2 clients, and you're selling to other clients.
So it's an interesting
vertical
model.
integration at its best.
I'm curious on how one human manages all of that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to go a step further, and hope you don't hate me for this. One ADD human manages all of that, because there's management that has to take place in that as well.
Absolutely.
How do you handle it?
Is it absolutely delightful, dude? ADD.
There you go.
It's working, having people, surrounding yourself with people that are great at what they do. And that's something I think a lot of people ultimately try and find people at the lowest price possible to help fulfill what they need.
How do I get it done?
Versus finding people who are the most qualified and paying the most you can afford to get the highest level person to help you move your business forward.
Well said.
And so, I think I realized that at a certain age that I need people, once again, that I realized what skill set I had and all the areas that I lacked. And so I was willing to pay. And I've also, in business, the more I've paid, the more successful I've been. The more I've been willing to pay for people and invest.
But you don't just
invest
throw
in
money at the
in,
problem.
No.
You got to make sure that person is worth what you do.
But if you have a B level person available or an A level is 15-20% more, paying the extra 20% is worth it because of what they bring to the table and the pressure they can take off you.
Takes time away from you.
And the vision they can help you fulfill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been tremendous.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that concept. I love the concept of the vertical integration that you've accomplished, and then, so you're, I feel like okay, you've got another venture that goes completely outside of the tile construction world, and then I feel like your head's always on a swivel. So there might be something there that is going to either enhance or help scale in any of those businesses respectively. And so your ears are always open. So talk about, what are the opportunities that you ultimately say no to, and what are the opportunities that you actually listen to?
What I've learned to say no to, specifically, is projects that we are offered that I think when I was younger, there would be jobs that'd be offered that seemed very sexy, very lucrative.
Sure.
And it'd be easy to be like, let's try and take this on. And I've learned through my years instead to say no to those opportunities if I don't have the bandwidth to actually handle them, knowing that saying no and not versus committing and not being able to perform will give someone else the opportunity to come back to you at a different opportunity when you might be able to handle that project. Yeah. So kind of being able to realize what we're actually capable of handling and what we're not. And when it comes to business, I mean, all businesses intrigue me. So just being able to kind of sit down and think about the opportunities that are there and understanding what appeals to me. What I feel like I could find some passion in and something that I think would be willing to commit some time to.
So you've got 3 businesses that are vertically aligned. and one that is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
How do you split your time with that? And why do you split it that way?
So I would say 90% of my time is within those three companies.
Okay.
The one that is outside of that business, I maybe 10%, because it's self-managed. We put once again we put the people in place to help run it on a daily basis. I just need to be able to check in, check numbers, do some strategic planning.
Is that business based on passion or opportunity? The outside business.
It was based on opportunity. That's become a bit of a passion.
Okay. Interesting. So I like that. When opportunity and passion meet,
Why not?
I smile.
Yeah, why not?
It's like, let's do that. That's the one I want.
Because sometimes opportunity, you don't know if it could be your passion. Like when the tile presented itself, I wasn't going to work that day hoping to find a job in construction. But when tile presented itself, I realized that this sounded interesting, and it's become a passion. I'm able to travel the world and see beautiful, parts of Mother Nature, and then incorporate that into people's homes. It's been an incredible journey.
No doubt.
That's great.
Yeah, really incredible journey. Okay, so as we close things up, right? So we've got a handful of listeners that I'm sure are aspiring entrepreneurs. We've probably got more that are wondering, shoot, how do I do that same thing? How do I scale? How do I vertically integrate? Others are just like, wow, I'm just interested in owning more than one business, right? So if there's 1, 2, 3 things that you could say, start looking at this tomorrow, start doing this tomorrow, something that these type of listeners could implement, in their lives immediately, that might get them on that trajectory, what would it be?
Well, I would say first, find where your passion is, because ultimately, and it's been said by many great leaders, that if your work is your passion, then you're never really working, right? You're just enjoying what you do. And when I started out as a tile installer, I never imagined I would build the companies that I have. And I don't. Every once in a while, I'll walk around Epic and I'll see a bunch of trucks and 60 guys running around, and I'll take a quick breath and like, wow, this is crazy. I never ever envisioned this when I started. So
from one kid that was willing to take a risk.
Yeah, and I never envisioned what was going to happen. So it's just finding your passion and seeing what you want to do, and then being open to opportunities as they come along.
What about this concept of no fear? So you said something that really hit me when we were. You just said, for some reason, I just have no fear when it comes to business, and more importantly, you said, I have no fear when it comes to taking a risk. So what about that? Like what about that you can share that has brought you to where you're at?
I think it's belief in yourself, and know that if you fail, that's completely okay. The Lakers lose games, and that doesn't crush their spirit to play the next game, right? We're all going to win and we're all going to lose. So being willing to take those risks, because if you don't, then who knows what you could have accomplished.
Yeah.
So I've taken the word failure out of my life, because it's only a failure if I didn't learn from that experience, and I think that's a big deal, right? Is that I'm going to try things that don't work to see what happens. I think they're going to work. I've got it projected, I've got it planned, all of that, and it doesn't work. What did I learn from that? And if I learn something, it's not a failure. It's just a learning opportunity. Yeah, and it is your education.
And there have been many. Our success now has been obviously lots of highs and lots of lows, right? It's not just an upward trajectory. So be prepared for those. They're going to come. But like you said, look at them as opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is from a guy that you met recently, Conor McGregor, right? UFC fighter, and he was in the ring after a fight that he lost.
Did not win.
He did not win, and he said, "You win or you learn." He said his coach taught him that. And I love that. I really took that to heart, because I agree with you. It's just eliminating that word failure is
so in
really
his
a big
world,
deal.
though, you either
fear.
win or you get older and you can't win anymore. I'm in that camp.
Something like that.
Yeah, something.
All right. You are listening to the CEO Podcast. Thank you, Josiah, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
That was a lot of fun.
Thank you for allowing us the space, the opportunity to do this. I do want to give a shout out to Left Coast Brewery as well, who sponsored this event for us and provided some really cool beer.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Goes down way too easy.
Yeah, way too easy.
Check us out at the ceopodcast.net. We'd love your feedback on any future episodes or topics that you'd like us to discuss. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, of course, on our YouTube channel and Spotify as well. And then also just a reminder, thanks for hosting us at your showroom, Famosa the Surface Studio. And cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. To learn more about Scott and Vince, please visit theceopodcast.net and check out the calendar to tune in for our next episode. While on this site, you can also listen to past episodes, access additional content created for our listeners, and if you would like to dive deeper into any topic, there is an option to schedule some time with Scott or Vince. Thanks for listening.